In 1948, a fascinating incident took place that underscores the immense value of the Bhagavad Gita, even to one of the greatest minds of modern science, Albert Einstein. A young Indian researcher, Dr. B.M. Gupta, met Einstein at the Princeton Institute of Advanced Studies in the United States. To his surprise, instead of greeting him in English, Einstein hailed him in Sanskrit. Dr. Gupta, however, confessed that he couldn't respond in Sanskrit. Einstein, astonished by the young Indian scientist's lack of knowledge of his own country's ancient language, remarked, "You hail from India, the original home of Hindu philosophy, yet you have not cared to learn that language. Look at my library. It treasures classics in Sanskrit, including the Bhagavad Gita and other Hindu philosophical texts. I have made the Gita my main source of inspiration and guidance for scientific investigations and the formulation of my theory." Yes, Albert Einstein, the father of modern science, found wisdom and clarity in Bhagavad Gita, which helped him navigate both life and his groundbreaking research. Hello everyone, this is Aaditya Mehta and you are listening to Personality Development Podcast. Today, we are going to deep dive into some powerful lessons from the Bhagavad Gita and how its ancient wisdom can still transform our lives today. To guide us through this insightful journey, we have Pramoda Vyasrao joining us once again. You already know him from the last two episodes, right? He is the guy who has achieved 52 goals and still counting. One of those goals was to read and deeply understand Bhagavad Gita. And today we'll get to hear his unique take on how this spiritual classic can be applied in modern life. I'll get him on the show in just a moment, but before that, take a listen to this quick intro music. And if you haven't followed this podcast, make sure you do, because I don't want you to miss out any of the future episodes. Here we go. Hello and welcome back to today's episode. As I've already mentioned, we have Pramoda Vyasrao one more time on this podcast, and I'm really excited about today's topic. But first, let me welcome Pramoda Vyasrao. Hello, Pramoda. How are you doing today?
I am doing very well, Aditya. I'm so excited to be back here. I loved the discussion we had last time.
Yeah, honestly, people have loved it more, okay, because I've got some amazing DMs on Instagram and I have got some amazing new followers on LinkedIn as well. So uh, I'm sure people are sharing the last two episodes that we did. And I believe it's really inspiring. Your story has been really inspiring to many people out there. And I'm just glad that you are here one more time. However, okay, getting started with the episode, first thing which I would really like to ask is, you being into IT, okay, you being into science, okay, now most of the people, I will say in India as well, they don't believe much in spiritual texts, okay, and that is one of the unfortunate things that is happening around the world as well, that modern people do not believe in the spiritual texts, okay. But I would like to ask you this: what actually motivated you to put Bhagavad Gita in your goals, okay, in the list of goals that you want to achieve? And what really inspired you that, you know what, this is something which I really want to follow and really want to read?
Yeah, happy to answer that question. For people who want to know a bit of introduction, I recommend listening to our first episode together, which is the 7-step goal achievement framework. The one thing I talked in that episode was I was inspired by John Goddard, the world's greatest adventurer who lived in the US. He had many goals, including learning new languages and scriptures.
Right.
When I read about his work, I listed my goals. One of the languages I wanted to learn was Sanskrit. I was originally planning to learn Spanish, but I thought one day, as I was chanting shlokas, right from my childhood at age 4, I lived in India, born in a Hindu family, so chanting was always common at home. I chanted without knowing the meanings of these words in Sanskrit. The
Right.
thought that came to my mind was, instead of learning Spanish, what if I learn Sanskrit, which can help me understand the shlokas I'm chanting? That could be
Mm.
a nice way. And then the further goal I set was, what if, just like John Goddard, who read the Bible, his scriptures, to learn about Christianity and the messages from Jesus Christ, I thought, what if I learn from the messages from Hinduism, from Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita? So those were joint goals. Learning
Mm.
Sanskrit, and through that, reading Gita in Sanskrit itself with very minimal reliance on translation and learning, they became joint goals. Learning Sanskrit and then reading Gita through my learning.
Mm. Wow. That's really interesting. And I'm actually, I'm going to write down a lot of things today. Um, I don't know listeners, but I have a pen in my hand and I have a diary with me. Okay. And I hope you are sitting with that too, because I always say in each and every episode, make sure to listen to this podcast intentionally, because there has to be an intention to learn something new. And I believe with a book and a pen, you already have that intention. So make sure that you do that. Pramoda, classic thing which you said was that you wanted to study, Sanskrit as well as Bhagavad Gita, so you don't have to uh, rely on the translation, but you can understand the shlokas by yourself. Now, one thing over here, it's a follow-up question, and then we will dive in the topic as well. Why you wanted to make sure that there is no relying on the understanding of the shloka, and the reason why you learned Sanskrit, because there are many translations already available out there. Okay, like many of the Bhagavad Gita which is being sold today as well, many of the Bhagavad Gita which you get, it is already there with the translation. Why you felt that there is a need to understand shloks without any translation?
There are two reasons. One is, as I learned the language itself, I was learning Sanskrit first before I read the Gita. I was fascinated with the language itself. It's something unbelievable. I really recommend people to explore Sanskrit. A lot of people say it's a dead language. It is not. There is, in fact, one village in southern India, in Karnataka, where everybody speaks only Sanskrit.
Wow.
Even today,
Okay.
the village is called Mattur in Karnataka state. There is a village where everybody speaks Sanskrit, fluent Sanskrit.
Wow.
So it's a misconception to say that it's a dead language, it's a classic language, and so on. You can
Mm.
Google and you'll find out the name Mattur, Mattur. Mattur is the village name. It's in Karnataka state. When I learned the language, I realized is an oasis of wisdom. And the language attracted me, the sounds. The second reason is there is something called as the Sanskrit effect. It's a latest research, you can read about it. It's called the Sanskrit effect. There are some sounds in Sanskrit that are unique. Just by chanting these sounds, you will feel calmer, you will be healthy, you will feel more peace. It's a research driven uh, point, by the way. You can read the research, you can read about the vagus nerve, the vagal tone, all scientific terms. That's why when people say science and spirituality, I have a quote for people to consider. The absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence.
Wow.
The
Yeah.
absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. We tend to go by numbers. We tend to go by measuring things.
Right.
Science is not yet there to measure everything in spirituality. In fact, in quantum physics now, it's all, everything is one, everything is energy now.
Right.
Everything is energy, everything is one. So you, in spirituality, you can call it as God, somebody who is a creator or something which is beyond you, a power, a source of power. But in science, you may call it as energy. Everything is energy. It is up to you. You can walk any way you want to the center of the circle, but you have to walk. The center is, there is something beyond us. You can call it as science-based energy or spiritual-based God, up to you. So those two are the reasons. One is the language, the beauty itself, the beauty of the language, the sound of these words. And the second one is understanding through my own perspective and not relying on other people's translation. Because once you have translation, people can add their own covering on top of it, their own perspectives. You lose the whole message.
Mm.
And I wanted to chant originally because my focus was not just the meaning. My focus was to learn these shlokas by heart so that I can chant myself. That was the original goal. Learn the
Wow.
language, chant the shlokas, and remember these shlokas as maxims or principles in my life, which can be used for taking actions, making choices, and taking decisions in life.
Wow. That's really well said. And two things. I'm definitely going to go for a solo trip in Mattur now. Okay. Because that is one thing which now I really want to explore. And the Sanskrit effect, I really have to explore that. And I'm sure I'm going to find some amazing things out there. Now, before diving straight into the topic, Pramoda, one more thing which I would like to ask, and I believe this would be the question for many out there. Okay. People normally mix up spirituality with religion. Okay. So, of course, what will happen is people say that Bhagavad Gita can only be read by Hindus and by no other religion. Okay. What is your say in this?
Yeah, it's funny. I lived in India. This is a common misconception that people mix up spirituality and religion. If you are somebody who is behind wisdom, world philosophy, life lessons, you can find it in any scripture, by the way. Religion should not be a barrier to get wisdom from other people. I'll give you three things to consider here, just in the context of Gita. First is the context of these shlokas. See, Bhagavad Gita is a portion of Mahabharata. Mahabharata has thousands of quotes or thousands of verses. Verses is shloka. Shloka is one. We usually say shlokas in English, multiple.
Right.
There are thousands of shlokas. Out of those, there are 700 shlokas, 700 verses, which is called as Bhagavad Gita.
Hmm.
It's a small section of Mahabharata.
Right.
This is a conversation between a few characters. I'll explain more later. The context is Arjuna is on the battlefield, and just before the battle begins, he sees all his relatives, his cousins, his teachers, his uncles, his grandfather, Bhishma. He says, I will not fight. He decides not to fight because I'm going to kill my own relatives. I will not fight.
Yeah.
And then there is a conversation between Krishna, who is the avatar of Vishnu, and Krishna tells him why he should consider fighting. The conversation between them, Arjuna keeps asking questions and Krishna keeps answering those questions. This is a conversation.
Hmm.
On the surface level, this is a conversation between these two characters from Mahabharata, Arjuna
Right.
and Krishna, where they're conversing.
Hmm.
But if you look at the deeper layer, this can be a question from me. I am the Arjuna who is confused about life, who is confused about the path of karma, the path of dharma.
Hmm.
These are subtle principles that Krishna is telling us through Arjuna, which means as you read, you will realize that you are the Arjuna in the story.
Right.
You are the one who is clueless. You are the one who is confused. You are the
Hmm.
one looking for wisdom in life.
Hmm.
I want you to have that as the context. Don't jump into religion. It is a conversation between you and someone else who can pass you wisdom.
Right.
Any doubts you have about life choices, you can find the answer in these 700 shlokas. That's the exciting factor about this particular book, which is the Gita.
Right.
There are 4 characters out of these 700 shlokas. If you read, there are 4 characters that are either saying something or asking a question. It is
Hmm.
as simple as that. Those are 4 characters. Number one, Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra is the father of Duryodhana, all the Kauravas, the other party in the battlefield.
Hmm.
He has only one shloka about it. That's the first shloka. He asks a question to Sanjaya. Sanjaya is his charioteer, Dhritarashtra's charioteer.
Hmm.
Dhritarashtra is blind, he cannot see. So in the story, Sanjay has got a special vision gifted by Vedavyasa. Now
Right.
Sanjay can see the battlefield from the palace, and he
Hmm.
can describe what's happening on the battlefield to the king Dhritarashtra.
Right.
Sanjaya has about 41 shlokas, 41 verses out of 700.
Okay.
So one Dhritarashtra, 41 Sanjaya. Arjuna is mostly asking questions and clarifying the answers.
Hmm.
Arjuna, his character in that set of verses, has 84. He has 84 verses where he speaks or asks a question.
Hmm.
And here is the interesting part. Krishna, who is the main character of this Gita,
Hmm.
Krishna has 574 shlokas out of 700, 574,
Wow.
where he's answering all the questions from Arjuna
Hmm.
with a lot of description, a lot of details.
Hmm.
So we covered the context, where it happened, and what's the parallel context. Like
Right.
I am the Arjuna and I'm getting wisdom. We talked about 4 characters who have divided these 700 shlokas either for asking questions, clarifying, or answering questions. The last C is the content themes. You have answer to every life question there. Every philosophical question, your dilemma, spiritual question, you can find answers there.
Hmm.
I am not the expert in Sanskrit, by the way. I have learned enough to read it. But if
Hmm.
you really have a great amount of knowledge of Sanskrit and how it is done,
Hmm.
every question you have the answer in Gita, by the way, in 700 shlokas. So I don't claim to be the expert. I'm a practitioner. I look at practical wisdom to apply to life.
Hmm.
Some themes you will read in the Gita is self-mastery, clarity of purpose or dharma, the
Hmm.
path of action or karma yoga, leading a life of spirituality and fulfillment, liberation,
Hmm.
what to eat, how to make good food choices, what are 3 types of gunas in everything around us, how to choose which guna. There's so much. What about yoga, how to be a yogi, how to meditate.
Right.
So every situation in life, there is answer. There are tips and principles for us to look and explore.
Right.
That is the reason I recommend reading it. Ignore the lens of religion,
Yeah.
wear the lens of spirituality, improving yourself.
Right.
And from that lens, you will enjoy reading the Gita.
Wow. That's very well said, Pramoda. I really liked the concept. And honestly speaking, many of us didn't knew that there were 4 characters. Okay. It was always said that it is a conversation between Arjun and Krishna, Lord Krishna, I would say. Okay. But never knew that there are 2 more characters, and that is Dhritarashtra and Sanjay. So
Yes.
thank you so much for that clarity. And definitely, I've read some verses from Bhagavad Gita, not the entire Bhagavad Gita, but that actually makes me more curious to read the entire book. Okay, with understanding, of course, because without understanding, it's just reading a novel. It's not spiritual, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, I'm very curious to know about that as well. Now, going ahead and diving straight into the topic, and the first question which I have for many people out there, okay, and that is there is a concept, a new concept which is known as, depression, burnouts, and all these are related to mental health. Now, burnout in particular, I believe, has been a reason for many to leave the work which they are doing, okay, transition towards something else where they are getting more fruits, I would say. Okay, burnouts is really something which leads to depression as well. That's what I believe. Okay, and apart from that, burnout is something, lack of patience. as well. Okay, because they work on it for like 6, 7, 8, 10 months. If they didn't worked out and then they stopped doing that, they tried something else. Okay, so what is your, if there is a shlok in Bhagavad Gita where actually says about this situation and what a person should be doing when he's at that stage of burnout?
Yeah, there are many, but I can pick a few from chapter number 2. There are 18 chapters in the Gita.
Right.
18 chapter. Each chapter has a set of shlokas. So I can pick
Mhm.
a few from chapter number 2.
Mhm.
One thing I want to remind your listeners, these are all my interpretations, how I interpret to life and how I help myself and my clients. So keep that as a lens as you listen to me.
Yep.
This is a shloka, chapter number 2, shloka number 37.
Hmm.
It goes like this. हतो वा प्राप्यसि स्वर्गं जित्वा वा भोक्ष्यसे महीं तस्मात् उत्तिष्ठ कौन्तेय युद्धाय कृतनिश्चयः. In simple words, all Krishna is saying is, Arjuna, fight this battle. If you lose, you will die. If you win, you will be a king.
Hmm.
Your duty is to fight.
Right.
Victory or death is not your worry or not your actual goal.
Hmm.
Your duty is to fight.
Hmm.
I say that because to me, this is a message that your job is to get it done. Whatever you're doing, your duty, your dharma, or whatever you have chosen as the path,
Hmm.
results is not your focus.
Hmm.
Victory or defeat is not your focus. Doing the act itself, doing the duty is your focus.
Right.
That is the message I've drawn in from the shloka, that all these concepts like burnout, they happen because there is so much focus on the outcome.
Hmm.
I want to reach a specific outcome by this date, this time. This outcome is the reason for all the stress we have in life.
Hmm.
But if you leave the outcome to me personally, either you win or learn.
Hmm.
Anything you're doing in life right now.
Right.
I'm on a 2 year career break. I'm no longer working in the software industry. I'm on a 2 year career break to publish my book. I
Hmm.
published a book, I have courses, I coach people while I'm experimenting. I'm
Hmm.
winning and I'm learning. Sometimes I learn more than winning. That's okay. But there
Right.
is no failure here.
Hmm.
Either way is great. I am learning or I'm winning. I'm getting something.
Hmm.
That's the message I've drawn from this shloka, that outcome is not my focus. My
Right.
focus is that I have a goal and I want to walk toward that goal without the attachment to the outcome.
But see, now there is a problem, right? Okay, that to not think about the outcome, okay, because there are so many thoughts which are being processed in our mind. Okay,
Mhm.
we normally say that, you know what, we shouldn't be focusing on the outcome, we should be focusing on the task which we are doing or we need with that needs to be done.
Mhm.
How can a person stop thinking about it? Because it is said scientifically that there are 70,000 thoughts which
Mhm.
are, going on in humans mind. Okay, how you are going to control your mind and stop those thoughts, okay, is one thing which I would really like to ask over here.
I have been in the world of self development for about 21 years, from 2003 onwards. One thing I'll tell
Hmm.
you is most people don't have their own thought awareness. If there is
Hmm.
one thing people can build, Aditya, is thought awareness. We
Hmm.
are creatures of thoughts. We don't take any action without a thought.
Hmm.
People are not aware of what they're thinking. There are random thoughts coming. People feel those thoughts, they take action.
Right.
Sometimes the thoughts are not even real.
Hmm.
Like people say this imposter syndrome, I'm not good enough.
Right.
It's a thought. Now, how do you process that thought? How do you relate with that thought? How do you respond? Is up to me.
Right.
That's the number one reason I see people not understanding that they are driven by thoughts.
Hmm.
They don't have to believe everything they think. If you have this random thought that I'm not good enough as a public speaker, for instance, you want to be a speaker,
Hmm.
you can say, okay, I am not good yet at this point. It doesn't mean that I am never going to be good.
Hmm. Hmm.
Which
Right.
reminds me the other shloka, which is coincidentally, it is the next shloka, chapter number 2, verse
Hmm.
number 38, 2.38.
Hmm.
Sukha dukhe same krutva labha labhau jaya jayau tato yuddhaya yudyasva naivam papam avapsyasi. The crux of this shloka is sukha dukkha. You already know what it means. Sukha dukkha
Right.
meaning happiness and sadness.
Right.
You have to be equanimous. That's the word, equanimous,
Okay.
like balanced.
Hmm.
Some people say stoic, in other words, but keep it balanced. So you are balanced minded, equi-minded, whether there is happiness or lack of happiness,
Hmm.
whether there is gain or loss.
Hmm.
You gain something or you lose something.
Right.
Jaya jaya meaning victory and defeat, whether you win or lose. He's telling Arjuna that you are fighting the battle for the sake of fighting.
Hmm. Right.
Tato yuddhaya yujyasva.
Hmm.
Naivam papam avapsasi. You will not get any sin. You do your duty. You forget about the outcome. You forget about these dualities. Sukha,
Hmm.
dukkha, duality. Labha, alabha is duality.
Hmm.
Jaya, ajaya, which is victory and defeat.
Right.
You don't worry about these dualities.
Hmm.
Your job is to get things done. Whatever you're doing, your duty, you follow that. Your duty right now is to fight the battle.
Hmm. Right.
That should be your duty.
Right. Right. That's very well said. But you see, I mean, this is a great example, and I really love that. But in all these things, there is
Mhm.
one more thing which a human mind actually is obsessed with. Okay, I would
Mhm.
say, and that is when someone says that you are fighting for the sake of fighting. Okay,
Mhm.
so basically you are doing work for the sake of doing work.
Mhm.
Okay, why it needs to be perfect then? You know, that's another thought which comes in human minds,
Mhm.
right? You know,
Mhm.
that I'm doing my best. Okay, why it needs to be my best? Okay, I'm doing for the sake of doing it,
Mhm.
right? So for example, okay, if someone says me that you are doing this for the sake of doing it,
Mhm.
okay, I'm like, but I'm doing it, right? So that's the normal idea which people would have in their minds. So why the perfection is needed? Okay, and when someone is doing something, okay, so let's say as a public speaker, okay, every morning I practice about certain things which are very important for me. Okay, like
Mhm.
I used to have this rigorous stammering problem. Okay,
Mhm.
where I used to stammer a lot, and because of that I had to do certain practices. So when
Mhm.
it started, okay, I used to do it regularly, okay, like without any break. But nowadays I'm taking a chill pill, okay, and I'm like, you know what? I don't have to do it now. I'm already at a good stage, okay.
Mhm.
I don't have to do it, okay. So once in a while I'll do it, like once in a week or maybe twice in a week I'll do it, and that is just for the sake of doing it. I won't even do it as a practice. I will just do it to show my mom that see I'm doing it, okay. So um why these things needs to be so perfect? Okay, why these things needs to be done the way they are needed to be done? Okay, is there any shlok in Bhagavad Gita which actually describes this?
In fact, there is a different angle to this. Instead of perfection, there is a couple of shlokas which recommend us not to be perfect. It's okay to be imperfect and still do it, which is
Hmm.
interesting. I'm going to share two of them. I have
Hmm.
notes here.
Sure.
This is we are now jumping all the way to the last chapter. It's okay. I'll just
Yeah,
narrate a
yeah,
couple of shlokas. We can come back to other chapters.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
from chapter 18, there are two shlokas which are consecutive shlokas, 47 and 48 from chapter 18.
Okay.
47 first. Shreyan swadharmo vigunah paradharmat swanushtitat Swabhava niyatam karma kurvan napnoti kilbisham.
Hmm.
What he's saying to Arjuna in simple words is, whatever comes naturally to you, your
Hmm.
natural strength, your natural duty, desire to do that duty,
Hmm.
your natural dharma, doing that is much better than following somebody's path.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
what is your duty? What is naturally to you? It may be a natural desire or a natural duty in that situation.
Hmm.
Doing that is much better than doing other people's action or other people's dharma. Following others is not useful. That is
Okay.
a good reminder for us to figure out either it's your own action, your duty,
Hmm.
or you have a natural talent or natural inclination toward that.
Hmm.
Doing that is much better than pursuing someone else's path.
Right.
There's great wisdom here. A lot of people have natural tendency. They want to start a business. There's a
Hmm.
natural desire right in their younger days.
Hmm.
So instead of ignoring, can you nurture that desire?
Right.
Even if you're not perfect, it can be imperfect. That's okay. But that is
Hmm.
your duty. You have a calling to do that.
Right.
You're doing podcast,
Hmm.
right? So if you start comparing your show with someone else, it may not be perfect yet,
Hmm.
but you're doing it because you have a calling for it.
Right.
You have a natural desire to add value to people.
Hmm.
You have gone through a process, you want to help other people through your process. That is
Right.
why you're investing time to create this. It's a natural desire that is shooting out to help other people.
Hmm. That's very well said, Pramoda, and I really appreciate it. So, in a way, okay, I would say in a young Gen Z way, follow your passion, okay, and
Mhm.
that's, or I would say, follow your purpose, okay, that what it is that is calling you, okay, and I really appreciate that. Now, there is a follow up question to that as well, because when people follow their purpose, where they understand that there is a calling to something and they do
Mm,
that. Okay.
mm,
So, for example, I started this podcast in 2020. Till 2022, this podcast wasn't earning a single penny.
mhm,
Okay. One of my friend also started a podcast. Okay. He met me through Instagram, and he told me that he started in 2020 till
mm,
2021. He didn't earn any money and he
mm,
left that. Okay. But in that 1 year of span, I did realize that he had a good inclination towards a podcast.
mhm.
But still, he didn't pursue towards it because he was expecting something out of it. Okay. So, you know, so the thing is, when you expect something out of, out of something, okay, where you are doing something which, you are so inclined towards it, you know that this is something which I love doing it, okay, you know that this gives you the extra happiness,
Mhm,
okay, while you are sleeping at night, it makes you feel good, okay, and you sleep well because of that.
mhm.
But suddenly, just because you're not getting out, you're not getting something out of it, you stop that.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is your say in that? Is there a
Yeah.
shloka about that as well?
This is a divine intervention because the next sloka we covered 1847.
Uh-huh.
I will cover 1848 and I'll go back to second chapter, 47 from second chapter. They
Okay.
actually answer both. Those two will answer your question. Okay, let's start with 1848.
Okay.
Sahajam karma kaunteya sadosham api na tyajet sarvarambha hi doshena dhumena agnirivavrataha. Now, I'll simplify this. Your natural desire, you have a desire to do something, you have a calling, you think that's your duty, that's your dharma,
Hmm.
you do it. Even if it is riddled with mistakes, even if it is riddled with imperfections, you do it.
Hmm.
And the analogy in the second line is really phenomenal analogy. Krishna says, whenever you light fire,
Mhm.
initially there is a lot of smoke before there is a lot of fire.
Right.
That's the analogy. So you should not quit because there is smoke. The fire will catch on later.
Right.
So wherever there is fire, there is always smoke.
Hmm.
Right? So wherever there is fire, there could be smoke there. Okay, it's a combination. A little bit
Right.
of smoke in the beginning. You need to be patient to get to the fire where you start a huge flame. When there is less fire, less smoke, and more fire. So that's
Right.
an image I want you to carry, which is 1848. I will go back to 2.47 to wrap up the answer.
Hmm.
This is a classic shloka. Everywhere you go, people quote this. I'm sure you will realize the moment I start chanting this. 2.47, chapter 247. कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्म फल हेतुर्भू माते संगोस्त्वकर्मणि.
Hmm.
This is my favorite shloka of all 700. I keep chanting this. I taught this to my
Yeah.
son at a very young age. He can
Hmm.
chant some of these shlokas. He's 13, but he can chant many of these.
Oh, wow.
So the reminder here is your right is only for the action. You have the right to action. Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana, not to the fruits of the action. Pramoda has the right to take action. My right is on acting based on my calling and my duty.
Hmm.
I have no rights on the results. I cannot claim that I want results. I've done
Hmm.
the action, I want result, I cannot claim. My
Right.
right is only to action.
Hmm.
Similarly, ma karma phala heturbhu. The end goal itself, the outcome should not be your goal.
Hmm.
The outcome, if you're obsessed about the outcome, that's not going to help.
Right.
You need to stick to the process and your action. And lastly, mate sangos vakarmani. Don't also indulge in non-action. Just
Okay.
because you want the goal and you're not seeing some results, you suddenly say, okay, I'll not do it now. Because I'm not getting the outcome, I'm not getting the results, I'll stop doing my natural duty or the calling.
Hmm.
It's a reminder that your right is only to act.
Wow.
To remind your friend who decided not to do, if he or she really had the calling, there is no need to stop. In
Right.
fact, there is a contemporary wisdom. Do you know Joseph Campbell, Dr. Joseph Campbell,
No, no.
who wrote several books? He was a big mythological researcher, and he was a
Hmm.
big fan of Hinduism as well. He has read a lot of Indian scriptures. He wrote, and his famous quote was Sat Chit Ananda. He kept chanting that everywhere he went to talk about what does it mean to him, Dr. Joseph Campbell. One
Okay.
of the students, like young student, came to him and asked Dr. Joseph Campbell that, can I be a good writer?
Hmm.
You will not believe the answer that Dr. Joseph gave to him. Dr. Campbell said to the young boy, he said, I don't know, you might be. If you can write for the next 10 years,
Hmm.
regardless of the outcome, regardless of monetary benefits, regardless of being successful as a writer, if you keep writing for the next 10 years, I think you'll be successful. And that is
Wow.
the answer Dr. Joseph Campbell gave to a young student who came and said, you are a great author. Can I become like you? It's a contemporary wisdom from someone, and you can find the same wisdom back in the Gita, traditional wisdom from Lord Krishna.
That is wonderfully explained. We have all heard this in movies and everywhere. Karma karte ja, phal ki chinta mat kar. Okay, that is exactly what it was. And the way you explained it has a lot deeper meaning now. So very well said. You have great analogies and examples with you, and I believe that's what makes you a good coach as well, because you actually use these Bhagavad Gita shloks to into your coaching as well, which is something I believe I should be doing more. So I'm definitely going to get into it more and more, explore the shloks more and more. But initially, I'm going to dive into these shloks as well, because I definitely need to do a lots and lots of thought process and think more about it. And I'm writing it down as well. So I have currently wrote down about John Campbell. That's what you said, right?
Joseph, Dr. Joseph Campbell.
Dr. Joseph Campbell.
Yeah,
So
he wrote a book called The Hero with a Thousand Faces. If you can read that book, he studied world religion and world mythology around the world. And he said, every hero story, every religious hero story goes through the same cycle of steps. He called that as the hero's journey.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. I'm definitely going to read that. Hopefully, it is available in India. But
It
yeah,
is on Amazon, it is available.
wonderful. I'm definitely going to read it for sure. Now, this would be my last question, I believe. Okay, and that would be nowadays. Okay, where people are into thinking more. Okay,
Mhm.
rather than doing. Okay, like honestly speaking, okay, there has been a time in my life, in my life as well, where I just used to sit in a room, procrastinate everything, and just think, what if this goes right, what if this goes right, what if this goes right. Okay,
Mhm.
and I never used to work on it, honestly. Okay, it was a different phase of my life, I believe. But till date, I find people, okay, who are doing it. And the things which I used to think about is that, you
Mhm.
know what, I helped this guy and he didn't help me back.
Mhm.
Okay, if he would have helped me back then, I would have been a successful person.
Mhm.
Okay, if I would have done this, I would have been a successful person. So the weight of the past, that's number one,
Mhm.
and the weight of someone else did not do something for you.
Mhm.
These two weights sometimes weigh heavy on your shoulders.
Mhm.
Okay, and that's really a problem for many people out there. Okay, it was a problem for me as well. And then I went into, I went to my mentor. I turned more spiritual and religious at the same time, uh, and came out of it. But there are many people out there who are under these weights. What would be your message to them?
I think it goes back to the same theme. There are, in fact, two more shlokas on the same theme. I will recite them. One
Hmm.
is from chapter number 5, shloka number 12. युक्तः कर्मफलं त्यक्त्वा शान्तिम् आपनोति नैष्ठिकीम् अयुक्तः कामकारेण फले सक्तो निबध्यते. Again, the quick summary here is karma phalam tyaktva. You have to achieve peace, to attain peace, detach yourself from the results
Hmm.
or the fruits of your action.
Hmm.
Peace of mind is where you stop looking at the outcome of your action or the result of your action.
Hmm.
You can attain peace by ignoring the outcome of your action and say, what's the result? What's the benefit of doing this?
Hmm. Hmm.
That's one message. That is 512. The same theme repeats in 6.1, which is chapter 6 and shloka number 1. Anashritah karma phalam karyam karma karoti yah sa sannyasi cha yogi cha niragnihi nacha akriyah. It's another beautiful quote. Verses. If you act without relying on the results of your duty or the fruits of your action,
Hmm.
when you don't rely on the fruits of your action and still do your work or your duty, you are a real sannyasi.
Hmm.
He clearly says you don't have to be a yogi, you don't have to be somebody who is doing yagna yaga,
Hmm.
you don't have to be following other ways of worshipping God or following me. If you just focus on your action, your duty, without being attached or reliant on the fruits of the action,
Hmm.
you can be a sannyasi,
Hmm.
somebody who doesn't really enjoy everything else, be a, it's
Hmm.
like a monk-like state.
Right.
So I would say go back to these themes and figure out, is it too much attachment to results? Either I did something, it has to come back to me,
Hmm.
or I made a favor, it has to be returned back.
Hmm.
It is everything is hovering around the same theme. I want the fruits of my labor. I did
Right.
something, I want something back as a payment.
Hmm. That's very well said. I really appreciate you sharing all the helpful tips. And audience, this episode is my favorite for sure. Okay, like I have learned a lot of things, and I'm sure that I'm going to read Bhagavad Gita a lot more now. Okay, because every answer is there in Bhagavad Gita. Okay, you just need to read it regularly, and of course, you can always go to a mentor to actually understand it as well. So, of course, okay, if you need a mentor, Pramoda is right over here. Okay, you are just a click away from him. And of course, you can always go to the spiritual gurus in the temples who can actually guide you through the process. And I'm sure that they will guide you. Okay. But again, okay, these all things which are being shared in this episode, it is our interpretation. Okay. It is not the exact thing. Okay. There could be a lot of different interpretations out there. So just make sure to keep your mind open, okay, and take these all in and try to implement it in your life, okay. And I'm sure that your life will be changed, okay. And I'm sure we'll be keeping more such episodes related to Bhagavad Gita shloks as well. Yeah, Pramoda, you want to say something?
I wanted to call out one more thing just to wrap up. From
Yeah.
the chapter 18, there is a shloka 67. I want
Mm,
you to understand this shloka, how Krishna is telling Arjuna that I have told you everything,
mm,
but you have to make your own decision with thorough thinking.
right.
That is in this shloka 1867. Iti te gnanam akyatam guhyat guhyataram maya vimrushyaitad asheshena yathechasi tatha kuru.
Mm,
I have given you all the secret of secrets, the most important, most well kept secrets. I have given everything to you now.
mm,
You have to think about all these things in depth. Vimurushya etad asheshena. Without leaving anything out, contemplate on these things.
mm,
Later, yathechasi tatha kuru. Whatever you feel like doing after listening to all these things, take your decision. Now
mm.
imagine Lord Krishna telling this to Arjuna. Same
Right,
thing. You are listening to all these discussions we have. You can read Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures. Contemplate on it. What is wisdom you want to follow?
right.
Then implement those in your daily life.
True, true. That's very well said, Pramoda. Thank you for that last message. It was really, really important. With that being said, listeners, we are on the verge of ending this episode. One thing which I really want to tell you, and that is you can now be a part of the community. So make sure to join the community. I'll mention the link in the description so that you can ask questions to the experts who come on this show. And with that being said, this is Aditya Mehta along with Pramoda Vyasrao signing off from this episode. See you in the next one. Till then, peace out.